Hello, Texas 4-H. My name is Molly Keck, and I am with the Texas A&M AgriLife Extension Service and the Department of Entomology. I am also one of the authors on the 4-H Entomology Guidelines. These videos were developed to help you better understand what you need to know for the Entomology Identification Contest. Remember, for each specimen, you need to know their common name, what order they're found in, what their life cycle is, what type of mouthparts they have, their host or location or where they are found, and their significance. Are they a pest, beneficial, inconsequential, or variable? In this 4-H study video, we are going to be covering the order Hemiptera, and this particular video is covering the specimens that juniors, intermediates, and seniors need to know. If you're an intermediate or a senior, continue on in this YouTube channel to find videos for the hemipterans that intermediates also need to know and that seniors also need to know. So the order Hemiptera are all of the true bugs. So if you see a cockroach in your kitchen, it's actually inaccurate to call it a bug because bugs are in this order Hemiptera. This is a very large group of insects, and so they're very variable. The hosts are going to depend on the species. Their significance is either as a pest, beneficial. In some situations, they may also be inconsequential. They all have a gradual or parametabolous life cycle. Their immatures are called nymphs, but there are some species that do have aquatic immatures. So there are some aquatic hemipterans. And they have a type of haustellate mouthpart. They're either going to pierce plant tissue or they're piercing your skin or another insect's skin and sucking up the plant juices or the blood or the liquid insides of whatever their prey may be. There are 3 different suborders of hemipterans, and this is especially important if you are an intermediate and very important if you are a senior. Juniors, you can get away without needing to know the 3 different suborders, but if you have an idea of what they are, it helps you group this very vast and diverse order of insects much easier. So the suborder Heteroptera, found within Hemiptera, Echinoranca, and then Sternoranca. Heteroptera are all of the stink bug looking insects. Echinoranca, to me, looks like cicada doesn't really show it, but on all the Echinorancas, it almost looks like their head is shaped like the letter A, which is what is in the suborder Echinoranca, starts with an A. And then Sternoranca are all going to be very soft, sessile, they stay still, soft-bodied insects. So the letter S kind of symbolizes the Sternoranca group, soft and sessile. Echinoranca has an A. Heteroptera, as we get into it, you'll see they have different wings. Hetero means different and ptera means wing. So looking first at the Heteroptera suborder within Hemiptera, these are all of the true bugs. The host is variable depending on what the species is, and we'll get into that as we look at the individual species. Their significance is they're either going to be a pest or beneficial depending on what they do and what their host is. They have that gradual or parametabolous life cycle just like all hemipterans have, and piercing and sucking mouthparts like all hemipterans have. So the best way to identify Heteroptera is to look at their wings. Hetero means different. Ptera, P-T-E-R-A, means wing. These Heteropterans, their 4 wings are different. The first half is hard and the second half is membranous. We would call this hemelytra, half hard. So that's a term that's important to probably know for sure for intermediates and seniors, and it's not a bad idea for juniors to know it either. So if you imagine that these insects have their wings attached on their shoulders, it's kind of like if you're wearing a blanket across your shoulders and they fold that blanket across, or their wings across their body. When they fold their wings across their body, it forms this triangle. A little triangle is formed on their back. And if they have a very broad shoulder like this guy does, it's a big triangle. If they have a very narrow shoulder, then the triangle is going to be smaller. The other thing that you may notice is that this part of the wing will be hard looking, a different texture, and where the membranous pieces are overlapping, that will have a different look or a different texture to it. So if I see a triangle, I'm looking at Heteropterans. I'm looking at the order Hemiptera and the suborder Heteroptera. I'm looking at all of the stink bugs, half hard and half soft wings. Back swimmers are a species of heteropterans that you need to know. These are beneficial insects because they are considered predators. They're feeding on things in the water. They are unique because they'll swim upside down, and this is actually an adaptation so that fish underneath can't really see them and birds above can't really see them. So it helps them blend in with their surroundings and avoid predators. So if they're swimming upside down, their top part, their dorsal part, like this top picture, is what you would see if you look up as a fish. And so it kind of blends in with the sky. The bottom of them, their ventral part, is darker. And so if you are a bird looking down, they're blending in with the water, with the darkness of the water. They have long hind legs that are modified as kind of like oars to help them shoot through the water quickly. Their body is kind of aerodynamic, or it's meant for being in the water. It's shaped like a boat, and there's a reason why boats are shaped a certain way. So back swimmers are aquatic beneficial insects. This is a bedbug. Bedbugs used to have wings, but they no longer have them because, as most parasites do, they lack wings because they would just kind of get in the way. So these utilize humans as their hosts. They are blood feeders, and so they would be a pest. They are found on bedding or seams, crevices, cracks and crevices. They like to hide in different places. For the contest, the host or location is going to be human. They do not transmit diseases, thankfully, but we can move them from place to place, house to house, apartment to apartment, location to location by moving our belongings because they're famous hitchhikers and they like to crawl onto bags and other things, clothing, even if you leave your clothes on the ground. And if you take that backpack or that bag somewhere, then they can crawl off and infest different areas. Giant water bugs are another aquatic beneficial hemipteran. These are going to be found in water, particularly in ponds. They are attracted to lights, and so a lot of people may call them electric light bugs. They are very commonly found at gas stations where the lights are left on all night, a movie theater, ball fields where there's big bright lights, especially if there is a body of water close by. They can get very large, up to 3 inches, but there are some species that are a little bit smaller, and their immatures and the adults are going to be found in the water predating upon other things. They'll even feed on tadpoles and fish if they're large enough. They also have modified legs. Their body is shaped so that they can scoot through the water very quickly. They have the oar-like legs, much like the back swimmer had, but then they've got these raptorial forelegs so they can reach out and grasp their prey. Green stink bugs are a green stink bug looking insect. They're what most people think of when you think of a stink bug, probably. Their host is very broad. They feed on a number of different types of plants. They, in particular, like weeds. They can be found in gardens. They're a big problem in agricultural settings where they're feeding on field crops, but they can also be found on roadside flowers or wildflowers. They're a solid green color. If you look closely, you can see that triangle marking on their back. And then if you can kind of see the membranous part of the wings below that are overlapping. Harlequin bugs are a very pretty, colorful insect. They are also a pest, and they are found on what are called cole crops, C-O-L-E. These tend to be crops and vegetables that we grow during the cooler part of the year. So they're not cold crops, but they are cole crops, C-O-L-E. Cole crops would be broccoli, cauliflower, lettuces, things that kind of grow in a head. Kales, I believe, can be a type of cole crop. Some spinaches can be a cole crop, but these are a reddish to orangey and black insect, smaller than a green stink bug, bigger than a ladybug, so a relatively small insect, maybe about the size of your pinky nail, maybe a little smaller. They are considered a pest in these cole crops, and they are in this group Hemiptera. Squash bugs are another pest. So one trick is that if a plant is in the name, the common name of the insect, they almost always are going to be a pest of some type. And a lot of times their host is in their name as well. So squash bugs will utilize squash and relatives of squash as their host. If you're an intermediate or a senior, I would take special note to make sure that you don't confuse these with kissing bugs because they kind of look similar. Their heads are different. Host is definitely different, but I can see how those two could be easily confused. You can see all their little nymphs on that squash that's growing on the right-hand picture. The adults are a brown color, kind of speckled, and along their abdomen, they kind of have an orangey and brown checkerboarded pattern. Toad bugs are funny looking little hemipterans that hop like toads, are kind of warty like a toad is, and are often mistaken for little tiny toads. They're not very big, they're only about half an inch long, so they'd be a little tiny toad. And they're found along shorelines. So these aren't technically aquatic insects because they don't go in the water, but they're found along the shoreline, lakes or ponds. And they're considered beneficial. You can tell from their front legs that they are some sort of predator. They have those raptorial legs. Those legs look a certain way to reach out and grasp their prey and then suck the juices out of them with those haustellate, piercing and sucking mouthparts. So those are the insects in the suborder Heteroptera. In the suborder Echinoranca, for all juniors, seniors, and intermediates, there are two insects that you all three need to know. But in this group in general, they contain cicadas, spittlebugs, leafhoppers, treehoppers, and plant hoppers. For juniors, intermediates, and seniors, you need to know the group of cicadas. Cicadas are also called chicharras a lot of times. They are mistakenly called locusts in some places. But the cicadas are those insects that crawl up in the trees and make all that loud noise that you hear in the summer months. They're considered inconsequential. The life cycle is that they lay their eggs on and near tree trunks. Those eggs hatch and their nymphs will crawl into the ground and they'll suck on the juices from the trees and sap from those trees under the ground. And they live there for a whole year and then they emerge again in the summertime, early summer, to make that noise and start that cycle all over. They don't really feed enough on the plant roots to be considered a pest in almost nearly all situations. They can be considered a nuisance because of their noise. Sometimes when they lay eggs, they can kind of etch into the tree, and that could be considered a pest problem. In areas of the United States where they have the periodical cicadas, and so many come out over these long periods, they only come out every 17 years, maybe 12 years. We really don't have those throughout Texas, just in some parts of Texas. But when they come out in other parts of the United States, they can come out in such massive numbers that they make the branches really heavy and they can cause physical damage in that case. But for Texas, they're really considered inconsequential. They're not really pest enough to be a pest, and there's no benefit really to them either. And then juniors, intermediates, and seniors also all need to know leafhoppers. On this one, you can see kind of more of the A shape to their body. This Echinoranca group have fully membranous wings, so they don't have the half hard and half soft. They still kind of have this triangle shape to them as those wings fold over the back, but they don't have that membranous tip. The whole entire wing is membranous. These are small insects that have a pointed head. Their body is kind of wedge-shaped. If you think about the wedge that goes as a stopper for doors, like at schools and other places and buildings, that's kind of how they're shaped. They're able to jump. That's how they get the name hopper, leaf hopper. They are considered pests. They suck the juices of plants, and they're found in a number of different places. They're found on grasses and on plants, different types of plants. So the host for them would just be various plants. In the suborder Sternoranca that all juniors, intermediates, and seniors need to know, there's only one for you juniors. Of course, intermediates and seniors also need to know that. And these are the aphids. Aphids are very soft-bodied insects. They don't move very much. They're found on plants. Many of them don't have wings, and they're very soft-bodied and small. Things I would know about them is that they have these little tubes at the end of their abdomen called cornicles. Those cornicles used to be believed to put out honeydew, but most likely they're emitting pheromones so that they can communicate with one another. They can sometimes produce young without mating, and they do this usually when they've been wiped out of a situation, and the ones that remain will pop out clones of themselves. So they don't necessarily need to find a mate to be able to reproduce. The females just make identical versions of herself. They are considered a pest. They have those haustellate mouthparts that all hemipterans have, and they're sucking the juices from plants. Because they're sucking that sweet stuff from the plants, they're also peeing things out with a lot of sugar in it, and that can promote the growth of honeydew, which is kind of a fungusy, brownish kind of color that will coat the outside of leaf material that's not very attractive to the leaves. Sometimes people call these plant lice, but aphids is the common name that you'll need to know for them, and their host is plants. There are so many different species of aphids, and they're found on nearly any type of plant material that you could imagine. Another thing that will happen with aphids a lot of times is that ants will tend to the aphids. So they help take care of the aphids so that they can drink the honeydew. So on the back of this leaf are tons of aphids of all different nymphs all the way up to old adults. And those white things that you see left behind or within all these aphids are their exoskeleton that they have shed, and it's just still kind of sticking to that leaf. For more information, study guide materials, and more, please visit the Texas A&M Entomology Department Extension website. Visit entomology.tamu.edu/extension. Scroll down and click on 4-H and youth programs.